Hello, legends. Today, I catch up with an incredible young woman named Natasha Etschmann, aka Tash Invests on Instagram and TikTok. Natasha has become kind of Australia's young people's voice of financial reason. She's showing young people a path to financial success and freedom, and she's built a tremendous, large community on social platforms, providing people information, advice, and most importantly, inspiration of how they can do what she is doing. And let me tell you, she's incredible. So enjoy the show. Well, it's very nice to meet you, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tash Invest. You've very much become that's your Instagram handle and that's your business name. Mm-hmm. But you very much become kind of the voice of like what I describe as financial reason and also financial independence and freedom for what generation would you say? Young people?
Yeah, my age bracket's mostly like people 25 to 35 who are following me.
Yeah, well, what you've built is incredible. You're following online. You're like what you built for yourself financially. Like, how did you get into investing?
Yeah, thank you. That was all very nice. I started learning about investing when I was around the age of 10. My dad was just talking about shares with his friends, and I was a very nosy kid back then. So I was like, what are shares? What do you mean? And he tried to tell me about shares of the tomato sauce bottle. And he was like, if you want to buy 1/10 of this tomato sauce bottle, your friends can buy 9/10. And I was like, what do you mean? Why would you do that? And it took years for it to click, but that was kind of my intro into knowing that shares existed. And then my first investment, I was 18. And I was like, Dad, I want to buy some shares now. What do I do? And he told me to set up a broker and which ETF to buy, which is very helpful.
And what was your goal though? What was your, like, were you doing it just because, so was your dad an active investor? Sometimes you follow your parents in the sense? Yeah,
they were more property investors. So they were buying houses, but obviously like it's hard to buy a house when you're 18. And I wanted something that I could just put $1,000 in, not heaps of money. They were kind of buying like more speculative mining stocks, which wasn't really for me. So I'd hear more negative stories about shares. But when I was Googling stuff, shares seemed like the answer for me.
And did you want to gain like financial freedom or was it like, what was the reasoning? Why, like what I'm trying to figure out is, if I'm 18, and I've got like a vision for my future, like, I could, enter the industry I like, or I could start a business, or I could, build a stock portfolio. But the stock portfolio, while it kind of is the more like, not affordable one, the more like accessible one, like you can buy them. Like it is something you can do when you're young. It seems to be the path least taken, of the three. So I'm trying, like, why did you take that path? What were you thinking it was going to give you?
Yeah, interesting about the business aspect. I haven't reflected on that too much, but I think no one in my life had their own business really at that stage. So I didn't really see that as a possible option for me. I was like, everyone gets a job, they invest, and then they hopefully retire later on. But in that moment, I just wanted to make more money. Like I was young, I was traveling heaps. I was only 16 when I graduated high school. So I had a whole year of 17 where I was working full time. All my friends were all going out drinking, but I couldn't go with them, which is probably really good. But yeah, I just wanted to travel lots and I wanted to make money. And back then I was like, cool, this is how people make money.
And then what was the start of your journey? How did you start?
Well, my dad just said to open up an ANZ share account back then. And then I bought an ETF called IVV, which is the S&P 500, the largest 500 companies in the US. And he suggested it because Warren Buffett wants his wife to invest in that. He was like, well, if Warren Buffett suggests it, sure, it must be good. So that's what I started out with. And then I didn't really get it for a while. So I was like, there must be a catch. Like it can't be this easy. Why is not everyone doing it? So it took me a few years to get comfortable with it, but now I invest a lot more.
And how do you study? Like, how do you actually research it?
I was just Googling stuff. It was a lot harder back then because there wasn't so many Australian specific people. It was more people in the US, and there's lots of different things. They have like Roth IRAs and stuff that we don't have here. So that was a bit confusing, but I was just Googling things, watching YouTube videos, reading books.
And just absorbed yourself into that kind of world.
Yeah, just Googled everything I didn't know.
And so you've obviously built like a very large, you've got your own fantastic podcast and you've got a very large following online as well. What made you then realize, wait a second, like there's an opportunity here. I can not just invest for myself, but I can turn me investing into a business.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be a business. I was just the friend everyone would ask for money advice, and everyone knew that I was talking about money and I was happy to talk about money. So one day during COVID, I just posted online about it because I saw lots of people in the US doing it, but no one really in Australia. And I didn't think it would ever turn out to be what it has now, but I was just lucky that people were really interested in it very quickly.
And did you have a strategy towards what you were going to post, or were you just kind of like...
No, it was very random. I was like at work, because I used to be a support worker. So I was like bored at work one day and I was like, oh, people are sharing their spending diaries. I just bought an apartment back then and I was living by myself for the first time. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll just share my spending diary. So I think it was like my first net worth post. It was maybe like $100,000 or something. And I had like my strata fees and my council rates and my mortgage payments, and people just really liked that. But there was no strategy back then.
That's pretty interesting. So you are actually sharing your current net worth with the world, and you're still doing that.
Yeah. I stopped for a little bit because people can be a bit mean, but yeah, I started going back to it.
What do you mean?
People like tall poppy syndrome is a big issue in Australia, and I think the world is still a lot more sexist than I realised as well. And there's a lot more stuff going on, and people get very upset and triggered when you share some of your money journey stuff, especially like real specific numbers, because then they'll just attack so many different things, and it's just hard to share that because people will challenge everything that you do. And
why? And so, how did sexism kind of get involved with your sharing of your money?
Oh, people being like, go back to the kitchen.
Oh,
like,
my God.
Women don't know about money. No, yeah, like really like just blatantly bad things, or like, yeah, girls are just bad with money. Yeah, just so much stuff like that. Or like daddy's money has been a really big one. So many people have been Googling my dad to try and prove that he's given me all of my money. It's like, well, please don't do that. But yeah, it's just so interesting watching that unfold.
If that was me, I'd say, yeah, that was like mad. Were you going to tease me because someone gave me money? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but it's just like all of my comments get flooded with like, well, your dad works in mining, so obviously he's got all your money and stuff like that. And the whole kitchen one as well, I feel like is so outdated, but people still say that, like, seriously.
Yeah, but you know, like, and that would, does reading comments like that hurt?
Not anymore, because I can expect it. It's more the ones that I don't expect where I'm like, oh, that's a
the
dig
new
I
ones,
wasn't.
like you've got new sting.
Yeah. I think it's a bit sad though when it's like you click on their profile and it's a dad with 2 daughters and you're like, it's so sad that you're commenting on someone's post like this. Like, what if your daughters want to do this stuff as well? Like, you're discouraging them. And so many people don't believe the gender pay gap exists, which is a hard one as well. And that triggers people a lot. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're a dad with 2 daughters and you're spending your time watching a young woman posting like really great financial information, well, I mean, you're already in the upper hand. Like, he's watching you. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the other way around. You're not watching him learn from me. I would take comments like that and be like, mad. Like, I've got your attention and you're upset enough with your own life that you have to comment on mine because to make yourself feel better. Because that's really all these people are doing. Like, you think really successful people are sitting there like, oh, get back to the kitchen. Like, no, they're sitting there like, mad. She reminds me of me. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, I like this girl. She's awesome. Yeah. Like, look what she's doing. Look what she's building. They're not the ones like, like, they're the sad people. Yeah. Let them be sad. And they help your algorithm anyway. They boost it. Yeah. So
it's fine when it's like 1 or 2, but when there's like, if a video gets like 5 million views, there'll be like 10,000 comments, and that can be a lot as well, especially when they're messaging my mum and dad and they're like trying to find out where I live. Yeah, someone found like where I lived before, so had to move and live somewhere else. But it's hard when they like kind of get into your life anyway.
And why were they trying to find out where you live?
I don't know. Just people doing people things.
You know, it is that attention, that like negative attention. It's like a big byproduct of like the social media economy. You know, like historically, if you did really well, you wanted to hide. You know, you weren't out there. You want people not to talk about you, so no one knew you had the money, and no tax man came along, and like you didn't want to talk about having money, and obviously that still exists. But a lot of people make their money through social media or through content or through all these avenues. And when you make money that way, like you, then you're automatically out there. In the sense, and it leaves you open to that. I guess like there's huge positives to doing what you do, but then that is one of the negatives.
Like, your brain's not made to have so much feedback all the time. It's like having like, if you have one boss who gives you feedback at work, you're like, oh, this is fine, I can deal with it. But then if you've got 10,000 people giving you their feedback at all times, your brain's just like, oh, this isn't a fun space to be in. Yeah, there's definitely heaps of positives that come with it as well. It's just interesting watching how negative it's become. And I'm a bit concerned for younger people these days.
People are negative. I mean, young people, we're going to get onto the topic of young people because I think that'd be a really cool thing to talk about at the moment. I think they're in an interesting position. But just still on the topic of people like tall poppy syndrome, because that is something that everybody goes through, particularly young women, and particularly young women that have big, large social media followings and are sharing real facts about themselves doing well, which I think is a great thing because it's showing people a realistic path to success, an achievable path to success. But like tall poppy syndrome, like I said, I really think it's probably one of Australia's the greatest country on earth. It really is. It's got the best people. It's the most beautiful country. There's so many positives to it. All around, it's the greatest country on earth. But tall poppy syndrome is the one big negative that I think holds down a lot of people and prevents our country from doing more great things because people get turned. Like, imagine someone else seeing your posts or your videos and then reading all these people abuse you. They're going to be like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, definitely. It turns people off completely. I even have like financial advisors worried about getting the same backlash that I get. It's like, oh, but like we need more people talking about it. It's very scary.
And you mentioned about the gender pay gap.
Yes.
What's the debate about the gender pay gap in your opinion?
Apparently it doesn't exist. Which I find quite interesting because statistically it does exist. I think there's a lot of misinformation and people think the gender pay gap means equal pay, but it's not equal pay exactly. It's just the gap between earnings between men and women. And some people get really upset by that and they think that by pointing out the gender pay gap, I'm trying to pull down men, which I'm not at all. So that's been quite an interesting one to explore online. Yeah.
Do you think it's maybe then the wrong name? Like, because you're right, there is a difference in... if you average out all the men and all the women, then the pay is different. Not different so much per exact same job, but if you average everyone out, it is different. And you're saying that is the gender pay gap.
Yeah.
And so what's the dispute? What's the argument against it? Like, is the argument that it's called the wrong thing?
No,
potentially?
I think people get confused. This is me trying to think about why they're calling it not real, but some people are just like, no, it's a myth, it's not real, when it is real.
Yeah,
like it's statistically real.
But do you think those? But what I'm saying, so do you think those people are saying it as like, well, no, the pay gap between men and women on the same job is almost the same, for example, and therefore it's not real? Is that what they're saying?
Possibly, like they've not said it outright, but possibly. I think it's hard because a lot of female-dominated occupations are valued a little bit less and paid less if you think about teachers and nurses and healthcare workers versus like other industries, and people try and argue that those industries are worth more money, which I guess they might be in a certain way, but it is definitely hard when we've got like lots more men who are CEOs or sitting on boards and stuff like that, and women don't get those same opportunities. There's an interesting stat that shows that when women have kids, then they are like less likely to get a promotion, but if a man has a kid, he's more likely to get a promotion because he's seen as responsible. So it's just interesting how those values and beliefs are kind of put onto people. Yeah,
it definitely makes a difference. In fact, having a child is the largest contributor towards a pay gap between people in the same roles. So like it creates, I can't remember the actual statistic, I read it a while ago, but that is the biggest contributor towards a pay gap outside of a different focus on industries and preferred jobs and things like that. So if you were looking at the same job or the same company, the big differentiator is the child essentially. So that is a big problem. Yeah. And so how do you feel like you're doing something about that in the sense with what you're doing? You're showing like a alternative path to wealth creation that you can do that have ownership over and do, whenever you like?
Yeah, like I'm definitely trying to encourage everyone to invest. My following is still like 40% men and 60% women, so it's still like almost even. But yeah, just showing and just like kind of bringing up conversations every now and then. Like people aren't ready for them all the time, but just mentioning that like, yes, this is a real thing. This is what it's actually about. This is what we have to do to change it. But yeah, I definitely can't change it completely myself, but trying a little bit.
No, but you can contribute. Yeah. And that's what's so beautiful about like what someone like yourself does is you're not keeping it to yourself. Like, you're learning, like you've got this wealth of knowledge now, and all this time you're putting into like studying, I'm certain, and making mistakes. Mistakes are costly in investing and in business, but that's how you learn. But you're sharing these things, you're almost fast tracking other people's success. Like, and if you didn't share, people wouldn't do it. Like that's the like sharing is, if someone has more examples of what they want to do and what they want to be, they're more likely to do it.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
like you are
Doing
contributing.
it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Does that make you proud?
Yeah, it's been a nice pep talk.
And is that? but I'm trying to find like what's a huge driver for you? Like what is the drive? Like if people are harassing you online, you don't need to be sharing. You can just do what you're doing now and not share, and you're still going to make money.
Yeah.
So what is the purpose of sharing then?
Yeah, definitely helping all the people who message and say like, oh, I've been following you for years, and now I've invested $10,000. I've bought a house. I've left my abusive partner, and I'm now living independently. Like they're always wonderful messages.
Yeah.
It's also cool just like having something that's mine and like being able to make money that's completely mine and not having to go to work every day. Like that's been great. And I can just build things that I want to build.
Yeah.
I think I found it quite hard working in a regular job because I like to question a lot of things and people don't like it when you question stuff. So it's cool just being able to do whatever I want to do now.
Yeah. It's like ownership of your life.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of business. It's like sometimes it can suck. Like, or a lot of the time it sucks.
Yeah.
But at least it's yours. You know, like
you can change things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's everything's a problem that you can, in a way, in a sense, overcome. Like it's your problem.
Yeah.
It's really.
I just want to make people understand that investing is a lot easier than it's made out to seem. Like there's lots of financial advisors and lots of investment advisors who try and make it really complex because they want to make money from it, and that's fine. But I think people get so turned off by investing and they're like, oh my God, it's so complex and it's so hard and it's for rich people, when really it's the secret to like everyone building wealth.
Yeah, long term especially.
Yeah.
You know, if people were more, if people invested just every single year in the market, over a 10-year period, I can't remember what the actual stat for is. You probably, I mean, you know a lot more than me about investing in stocks anyway.
My fun example is if you invest $100 a week for 40 years and it returns an average of 7% a year, which is like less than the average of the stock market return, you'll end up with $1 million in 40 years, which is awesome. Because $100 a week is pretty manageable for a lot of people. Maybe a bit harder these days, but yeah, like you could be a millionaire just from $100 a week, which is pretty cool.
Do you think the big reason people don't do it though? Because it sounds like, okay, yeah, definitely, I will do that. But do you think the biggest reason they don't is that the payoff in their minds, like the benefit is too far away?
Yes, definitely. I get so many comments being like, well, I'll be dead then, so what's the point? I'm just going to die in a few years. Yeah.
That's a horrible trait, isn't it? That very much is something that I think our country, potentially the world, has let down young people at the moment. It's almost like a sense of, well, everything's out of reach. I'm fairly certain we're going to plummet into World War III. And so I don't really give a shit. I'm going to spend all my money and have as much fun as I can now. Mm-hmm. You know, like, and I'm going to find a job that gives me as much freedom as possible to actually do that.
Yeah. And I'm not going to bother saving for the future. Yeah, it's interesting watching because I guess we've had COVID recently and that's been a bit hard and there's been other wars breaking out. But like there's always been wars happening over our history. And if you look back at like World War II and then World War I and then we've got like the Cold War and stuff like that as well. Like there's been catastrophic things that have happened throughout all these generations too. But it's interesting now that young people today are like, oh no, I don't want to invest because I'm not going to be alive then. It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Never mind then.
Yeah. The world's been fucked up for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, trust me, it hasn't just started now. Like, we got new issues, but this has happened over and over and over again. And you know what? People that worked really hard and saved lots of money and made smart financial decisions end up using a lot of these downtimes, a lot of these bad times as a big way to give themselves a huge accelerated boost in their wealth. You know, most downtimes are, if you've got money and you've saved, that's a great time to buy some stocks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You know?
And I think it's hard if people are living in Sydney and Melbourne and they don't think about maybe living somewhere cheaper. So I got my head stuck because I lived in Perth and property was a lot cheaper in Perth a few years ago. I think a lot of people get stuck and they don't see that they can move for a few years to kind of get ahead. They're just like, oh, Sydney's too expensive, so I'm never going to be able to buy property. Instead of being like, oh, I'll buy in Queensland or buy in Perth and then maybe come back to Sydney later on. They're just like, no, Sydney's too hard, so that's it.
Yeah. What do you think's contributing to that in the sense? Where do you think young people's minds is, like, regarding just their life and like in the sense of wealth?
I think social media is a bit scary with how quickly things can spread and the media is very negative as well. So if you see lots of headlines saying you're never going to be able to buy a house and you need to earn $400,000 a year to buy a house, whatever the stats are at the moment, you're going to like internalize that and be like, okay, it's not for me. And then you go on TikTok and then you see people also saying that they'll never be able to buy a house. And you're like, oh, everyone around me is saying this, so of course I can't buy a house. You're not seeing enough people who are talking about doing it. And then if you do talk about doing it, people just want to tear you down quite a bit. And I get so many messages from people saying they can't tell their friends that they bought property because they don't want to be hated on so much and they're embarrassed about it. Yeah. Because I did a post recently, I had to take it down because people were a bit upset about me, but saying that landlords weren't really the cause of the housing crisis.
Well, of course they're not, but
Yes. But people believe
Yeah.
it is, yeah. And so many people replied to that saying that they feel like they couldn't talk about it all with their friends anymore because it was just like this huge divide between homeowners versus non-homeowners. So you're not really seeing people doing it, you're just seeing people complaining about it and not doing it.
Yeah, well, the real issue, like there is, I can see what those people are arguing because there is a divide in who owns homes is the problem. The wealth gap is getting bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So the wealthy are getting much more wealthier and the non-wealthy are getting poorer is what's happening. And it's happening globally. Like America basically doesn't have a middle class anymore. You're either super wealthy or super poor, and that's a problem because for a democracy to be healthy, you need a really robust middle class. In fact, a democracy is a middle class.
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is, because it's got to be a fair society. And I fear that Australia, so I can see where those people are coming from because when they're looking, they're like, wait a second, there's like this class of people who own all these apartments. And, they own, it's an investment apartment. And then the argument for that would be like, well, if you can't afford the increase in mortgages, then you shouldn't invest in that apartment it's just a null argument. But I think what they're potentially more upset about is the fact that, well, I can't afford an apartment. This person has an investment apartment. And because they're buying an additional home that's not just their home, now there's less apartments to buy. Like they've lowered the supply of apartments and therefore the prices are high. So now I can't get in. So I can see that argument.
They're missing the point where it's like I think we need between 50 and 70,000 additional homes each year than what we're actually building. So I think it was last year they only built 170,000 homes and we need between 220 and 250 each year to keep up with the population growth.
And that's the current issue.
Yeah. So
that is what's causing it.
Falling behind. Yeah. But people can't see that exactly because it's easier to blame someone in front of them rather than the government.
Yeah, and the government doesn't want that attention on them.
No, they just push it back on.
Yes, because really what should be happening is houses should be, like cities we should have more cities. We don't have additional cities. Like if you go to the US, there's cities everywhere. You can go and live in every like part of every state at the whole and find cities where you can get a job, start a business, like get to work quickly.
Or even in Europe, you can just drive to
Europe
another
especially.
country.
Yeah, Europe especially.
Yeah.
But America's a little bit more new, modern, I guess.
More comparable.
Yeah. But we don't have that. It's like if I leave Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, I basically can't like earn a decent living.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Like now you got Parramatta like now in Sydney, which is a great and Wollongong's kind of starting, and I've heard Newcastle. I actually haven't been to Newcastle, but I know Newcastle. So they're starting, but we need the government needs to build more infrastructure to get people between these cities.
Yeah, it's so slow to get places. I went to Japan recently, incredible. You hop on a train and you go from Osaka to Tokyo in an instant. It's incredible.
Wow.
And then I got the train from Canberra to Sydney one time and it took me 4.5 hours. And it was why? Why have we not upgraded these things?
That's the biggest issue. And that's what causes the housing thing. But I get where those people are coming from because in their eyes, they're seeing, there's this class of people that buy everything, and there's my class which isn't able to buy anything, which is unfair.
It's unfair. But then you can also buy in Perth or something. People are just looking at the places they want to live, and I think there's this whole Australian dream still where everyone wants a house, and people are like, oh, why would I buy an apartment? Apartments are a shit investment. I don't want to live there. That's not for me. Apartments are ruining our community or whatever the argument is. So it's interesting seeing how people want houses and they want them in Sydney or Melbourne, and they don't want to go outside of that.
Yeah. No, definitely true.
But apartments can be good.
The other thing is, though, you can't buy a house anywhere, whether it be Perth or somewhere cheap, if you're spending all your money.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. So if you've bought into the whole idea of I'm never going to be able to own anything or I'm never going to be able to get ahead, which is obviously not true. People get ahead every single day. Mm-hmm. It's a question of believing you can and then just looking for ways to do it and actually doing small things every day to make sure you do.
And if you tell yourself you can't, then you can't.
Exactly. With anything in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's if you have that mindset, it's kind of well, I'm never going to do it. So I'm just going to get the highest paying job I possibly can with the most freedom from that job to work from home and do whatever I want. And I'm going to spend all that money on nice lunches that I can post on social media. or holidays or whatever else.
Yeah, or buying drinks out. That was the one that always got me when I was younger. People spending like $15 on a drink when they were out. Like horrifying, but yeah. Still can't bring myself
for someone
to
like you, you're like, no, drink it at home.
Yeah, don't do that. I used to travel quite a bit and I would try and stick to the whole $30 a day budget thing for ages when I was like 18 and 19. Yeah. But again, like if you bought a $15 drink, that's half a day. And that's how I would work out things in my mind, being like, why would I spend that money if that could get me another night in a hostel somewhere?
Wow. So you were traveling on $30 a day?
That was my goal when I went. I traveled around India and Thailand and Vietnam and all those cheaper Southeast Asian countries, which is amazing. Sri Lanka as well. But yeah, you can easily live on $30 a day there if you really want to.
And so give me a break. This is astonishing for myself. Give me the breakup of a $30 day on holiday, not a $30 a day.
Yeah, so I traveled really cheaply, and this was like pre-COVID times. I don't know what it's like these days. I travel a lot more expensive now, but it would be like a $5 to $10 a night hostel. I would get only the local transport, so you could get like an overnight bus for a few dollars maybe, or get like a few dollar train or something like that. In India, I was getting like the trains that were like 28 hours or something, so you'd save a night on accommodation and also get somewhere, which is fun. And then if you eat street food, you can like get a meal for $1 or $2 in those countries. So that was pretty easy. And then I kind of like save up a few dollars here or there to do like an excursion or something. But if you like live like a local, it's pretty easy to get by.
Yeah, and that's actually an interesting way to do it. If you go on a holiday, live like a local.
If you're backpacking, yes. Definitely not. Yeah, there's definitely the difference between traveling and like going on a holiday, because traveling is quite hard at times, but you get to see the country properly. Like I remember being on a train to Varanasi, which is where like the holy place in India where lots of people go to die. And that was crazy being on that train because people were like really sick and very unwell. They were doing like ceremonies on the train. And I was just like sitting there as a 19-year-old or something being like, wow, this is a whole other different part of the world. And I just get to sit here and be part of it.
I like that though, the concept of traveling not being a holiday.
Yeah.
I never really thought of it like that.
I'd always finish off with kind of like holidays maybe. Like I'd sometimes meet my parents at a nice resort for 5 days afterwards and be like, oh, this is nice. But like it's really cool to get a proper appreciation for how other people actually live. And of course I was like really privileged anyway and I had the money, but like getting the third class trains, being around people, seeing how lovely they could be, seeing how the real world works, I guess.
And what drove that? Like why were you like, I'm going to travel on $30 a day?
Because I wanted to travel for as long as possible and go to as many places. And I was like a uni student back then. So if I wanted to travel, I had to do the cheaper things. And why would I spend heaps on an expensive holiday if I could go to 3 other holidays instead?
And would the argument be from like your peers, I guess, well, you're going to have less fun than I am in life and you're saving for no reason then?
I think I found it quite easy back then because I like attached my identity to saving money quite early on. So people just knew that's what I was doing. Like they were just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like it's just what she does. There was lots of like, oh, you're going away again kind of comments, but they kind of saw that I was working lots and they saw that that's how I could do that because I was always like running off from uni to go to my other job and then always late to class because I was at some other job in the morning or something like that. So they're all very aware of it. But definitely some people were like, oh, well, why would you do that? Or like, sure, this festival sounds really fun or something like that. But then I think I was lucky with how most people were positive about it.
And it's actually baffling. You're like an anomaly in today's young world. Well, you know, it might not be that. It might actually just be that you're the only one saying it.
Yeah, there's definitely people who still do it. You just don't see it as much. And then the people who do it, I think, can talk about it online. They end up making money pretty quickly and then get gifted stays. So I think you don't really see the proper budget travelers too much because either they're not talking about it or they're getting gifted hotel stays these days. So yeah, you don't really get to see the fun anymore.
But I think it's sad that, you know, in the younger generation, that the being cool is not potentially not working hard and saving money. It's, you know, posting beautiful lunches on social media. That, you know, like that. And I think that's a bit of a sad thing. Well, sorry, no, that's not what's sad. What's sad is the fact that the government's allowed that situation to happen by making buying a home, let's just use that as our benchmark to generating wealth, making buying a home so unattainable to young people, feels so unattainable to young people in major cities. Like, that's really the sad thing. It's like, if I was young, I'd probably feel like that too. I'd be 100%, I'd be one of the ones like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm going to Europe.
Yeah. It's also just become so normalized. Like, TikTok is great, but I think it's hard when you scroll on TikTok and it feels like everyone is in Europe this year. Like, literally it feels like everyone's there and I'm not. And I feel fine with that because I'm really clear on my goals and what I want to do. And I know that I could go to Europe in a few years and it'll be fine. But I think it's hard if you don't have set goals and you're scrolling and you're just like, wow, everyone's doing this and I'm not. Like, I'm missing out and I need to do this as well.
Yeah, or what's wrong with me? Why am I not able to do this? Am I not earning enough money? Am I not whatever it is? Like,
maybe I should get a personal loan because my friend did it. I hate how the after.
Is that what people do?
Yeah, people have been getting personal loans.
That's so scary.
Yeah, or putting it on their credit cards. I think it's really scary, the buy now, pay later ads. Like I've seen Before Pay and some of their ads, they're like, someone's talking about going on Byron Bay but can't afford it. And their friends are like, oh, just use Before Pay so you can come with us. And that's an ad that pops up all the time on my feed. And that's so dangerous how normalized it is.
Yeah, that is dangerous.
Yeah, and if you are scrolling past, everyone's in Europe, and then you see this Before Pay ad come up where it's like, oh, just put your trip on a buy now, pay later product. You're like, oh, here's my solution. It only cost me $5.
Oh, you know why that's scary more than anything? It's a fast track to socialism. Because when everybody feels like they have nothing and they feel unjust and people feel like, oh, well, the system's not fair, we should all have equal. We should all have a house.
No, equal doesn't work.
Of course it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's been an argument for forever.
I keep seeing people say like, abolish capitalism. Like, okay, cool. Well, what's the other
No. If you
solution?
don't like capitalism, go move to China or Russia. Yeah, go move there. Let me know how it is. No, you're not going to like it. Like, capitalism is not perfect. It's not, because what ends up happening is the most successful capital ends up kind of corrupting the rest to keep making itself more successful. Yeah. So it is a somewhat broken system if you allow.
It's the best one we have.
If you allow it. But it's the best one we have. And actually in Australia, it's quite good. In America, the problem is that big money and like organizations and funds and corporates can donate huge amounts of money to the politician of their choice to make a deal.
Yeah.
We can't do that here. You can, but you have to register it, and there's a full process, and then they look into it and they look, okay, why have you done this? So Australia is actually more protected.
Yeah, which is good. But it's scary what's happening in the US, watching how many ads Trump was buying. I watched a documentary on that. Like, that's terrifying.
That's both parties. That is how politics works there. And the problem is, if you are in that environment and you want to win, well, you have to do that. Otherwise, you can't win. So that becomes the norm. We don't have that issue here, though.
Read a really interesting book, and it was about everyone one day woke up and there was a box on their front porch with a string in it, and they were all like, oh my God, what are these strings? And then they found out the strings represented the length of their life. And then they kind of ended up getting segregated into short stringers versus long stringers, which is quite interesting. And then the long stringers were the only ones allowed to be in parliament and the only ones allowed to have good jobs, because why would you hire someone who's going to die in a year or two? And it kind of really highlighted the whole like wealthy versus less wealthy populations, where it's like the rich people have all the power because you can see their metaphorical like long string. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Tell me, so where did you find that? You read that, you said?
I just read a book.
What was the book about?
It was like all about this string. So it was the big question they were kind of asking is, would you look at your string if you could figure out how long you had left to live? Which I found quite interesting. So I would say yes initially, but then I read the book and I was like, wow, probably not.
No, I wouldn't.
No? Interesting.
No.
I'd be too curious. I'd just be like, oh my God, it's there. I have to know. Like, would you make different choices if you knew your string was shorter?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't. I think I live my life as much as I possibly can. I'm not a great example. I'm probably not the normal. But like, I spend as much time possible with my family. I've done as much business, which is, I guess, my passion. Like, that's my wealth creation in the sense for you. It is also my way to create wealth, but it's my passion.
Yeah.
But like yours is wealth creation. And I've done as much. I can't do more than I've done. There's nothing I could have changed to have done more than where I currently am.
Yeah.
So if I die today, it's like I did the max.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but that's not common.
Yeah, I would want to look anyway, I think.
You would?
I don't know. I keep going backwards and forwards because the book was very bad for people who looked. Like, people were ending relationships because would you want to stay with your partner if you knew they were going to die? And you'd be, and then also like not being able to be in the army. You couldn't be a politician. All this stuff was happening. You couldn't be a doctor because they didn't want to train people who were going to die anyway. Just created this whole class system. But yeah, it was an interesting read.
I'll tell you a bit of a sad story, a personal story, but it would contribute to this. My mum passed away at the start of this in March from cancer, and she found out randomly that she had stage 4 colon cancer 2 years ago, like almost to that, like around this time 2 years ago. And so she, in a sense, there was a lot of like up and down in terms of like, oh, we can beat this, there was a lot of that. Our family's very positive, very strong family, like emotionally and relationship wise. So there was a lot of that, but also there was a lot of like, her life's going to end her life's going to end. And that whole 2 years was horrible, knowing that her life was going to end soon, and if she could choose to know a year before, like not change her situation at all. So let's just say it was the same situation as finding out 2 years ago, but find out 3 years ago and then wait another year until something bad happens. I reckon there's no way she'd want to know that, because then she's sitting around like, because then you'd be, knowing is not good. I think what's good is living the best you possibly can. Like, just if you can say it doesn't mean every day has to be like amazing. Like I didn't have a great day yesterday. Like I didn't accomplish very much. But as a whole, if you're like I'm really trying, I'm trying, not just business. Like I'm not just trying with money. Like I'm really trying to like, build a family or really see my loved ones all the time or like learn how to play piano. Like, like really trying things.
Yeah. Actually living life. Definitely.
Yeah. I think then you don't want to know, because it's like, I'm trying.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. But at least I know I was trying.
Yeah.
I didn't waste my life.
Yeah. Amazing. It's so good that you can say that as well, that you feel like you're actually living every day like your max that you could.
Well, that's what I think is beautiful though about doing what you do and like what I do. It's like you've got a bit of a purpose. It's not your only purpose, but you've got a purpose, and it gives you something to work towards. If you don't have anything to work towards, you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Where do I go? Which direction do I go in? Like
when I was younger, I thought the whole like FIRE, financial independence, retire early thing was really exciting and fun. But then I had a bit of a break during COVID and I wasn't working. And in that moment, I was like, no, I like working and I want to keep working forever probably. And FIRE is cool in theory, but most people need something to do.
Yeah. You know what happens when you stop working? You die.
You get dementia maybe.
You literally die. You probably get addicted to drugs, alcohol. What are you going to do when you stop working? Like the only time you should stop working maybe is when your kids start having kids and your job, like, I'm going to help my kids help their kids, and I'm going to go on a bit more holidays and things like that. Like, I don't even know. Even then you'd probably be like, I need something to do. Like,
my granddad is 87 and he still works. And that's been quite interesting to watch how much better he is doing health-wise compared to my other grandparents who retired when they were like 60-ish.
Yeah. If you stop working, my dad, when he stopped working, his health definitely like plummeted.
Yeah.
Like, I think working, and it doesn't mean you have to be working. Maybe working's not the word.
Yeah, like doing something where you have to get up, get dressed. You have to be somewhere at a certain time. You're using your brain in that way. You're connected to people. The community aspect is huge as well. You're talking to people. You have to present yourself. It's
responsibility.
When you're around people, you're held more accountable to your health as well. Like you can't just sit in bed and eat chips all day if you're out in public. Like you have to probably eat lunch as well. And you're like,
and your appearance, you dress nicely and if you lose that, and it might not be work is the word. Maybe if you're saying I want to stop working, maybe you're not enjoying what you're doing. I don't need to work. Yeah. In fact, I could stop working at Cub right now and I did for 2 years while I was looking after my mum, and like I was desperate to come back. You know what I mean? Like it's not work to me. It's like it's part of life. It's what I do in life. It's what I do. Yeah. Like the same way as like you were saying, my purpose is like is being smart with my money and teaching other people to be smart with their money. Like that's what I want to do. Like, I think having something to do gets rid of it being work.
And the community aspect as well. I had this job a while ago now, but it was like a community-based support worker role, and everyone met at the office before they go pick up their clients. And that was my favorite job ever because you got to see all these people every day, and that was really fun, which I think is awesome that you're doing with your business community stuff where you're making a community. I think that's a lot of people are missing that at the moment.
That is our business. Our business is basically making friends between business owners.
Amazing.
That's what we do for a living.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah. It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, you know what you should do? You should start a community on Boa. So I don't.
Is that your app?
Yeah, it's the app. It's the new business. We haven't spoken about it. But we'll start one with you, and we'll create a community for young people who want to learn how to be successful and grow their wealth. And then we'll get in like incredible, we'll bring events so that they can come together, build friendships with other young people who want to do well. We'll bring in mentors. We'll bring in like investing experts, obviously yourself. We'll bring in some serious people, and we'll give this young community a huge. We should totally do that.
This sounds great.
Yeah, let's do that.
Nice.
Let's do that. That would be
sound great.
awesome.
Events are heaps of work. So if you're going to organise events, that'd be amazing.
No, we do it. Yeah,
Perfect.
we're basically an event girl. We sometimes we host 22 events a day.
Really?
We that's all we do. There's probably 4 events going on right now. Created.
Okay, amazing. Because I
created by
find
us.
events exhausting to organise, but I love going to
Oh
them.
my
so
God, events
you'll
are the
organise them.
worst to organise. I could not organise a 2-person event. No, in fact, I could not organise an event if my life depended on it. But we have incredibly talented people. Like some people, you know what? Some people, you don't like. You hate doing something and you're just incapable of doing it. But then someone else, they love it. Like,
Yeah.
and they're just
And they're so
guns
good at it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
the attention to detail some people have is incredible.
Oh, yeah, and they love it. Like
Yeah.
they feed off it. We've got a lot of them at Carbon Boa because that is basically the whole business. It's just
Perfect.
putting on things. So
I ran a finance friend speed dating event and people loved it so much. So if we could do one of those, that'd be awesome.
yeah, we'll do heaps like that.
Yeah.
How did that work?
So we had finance related questions and then we gave people coloured stickers and kind of made them rotate around. And the questions were fun at the start, like what's your favourite thing at a hotel buffet breakfast? But then they got more deeper later on, like what were your parents like with money? And it was a good way to get people talking about money to each other because some people are uncomfortable doing that. But it was so good that people weren't wanting to move when the timer rang, like they were talking so much. And then it ended at 8:30, but no one left until after 9 because they were all just chatting so much. Like it worked really well, which is awesome to see.
Wasn't that a special feeling though?
Yeah, it
when
was
you
so
can see
exciting.
people like they don't want to leave, like
Yeah.
they're staying because they're enjoying human connection and they're enjoying the people that you've brought them to meet.
Yeah, and they're like enjoying talking about money finally because all these people have followed me and they're like excited about money, but their friends don't want to talk about it. So to finally be in a room where everyone's like, oh yeah, I know this stuff as well. They're all so excited about that. It was awesome to see.
You'd be surprised how much of a positive impact that would have on all of those people. Because all of a sudden they're going to have a tribe that is like, or a community that is like, that has the same goals and ambitions as them.
Yeah.
You know, it is
can
the
see.
most important. Like club members pay $10,000 a year for that, with other business people, you know, in a similar position to them. Like people pay for that.
Yeah. We had people fly interstate as well. Someone flew from Adelaide to Melbourne to come, which is amazing.
Yeah, that just shows you how much they value it.
Yeah.
That just shows you they're also willing to pay for it because
Yeah.
they bought their ticket. Like, yeah, we should totally do that. I love that idea. I think that's going to be a huge, huge help to so many people.
Yeah, definitely if we go to different cities. Because I do lots of stuff in Melbourne and sometimes Sydney, but I don't do as many other cities.
Yeah, we can host them at the clubhouses too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we can travel the city. We can do Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. And next year there's Perth, Gold Coast and Parramatta. So we could do like roaming. What's roaming?
road
maybe?
trip? Roaming?
I don't know.
Road-
I
yeah.
don't know. Anyway,
roaming.
totally. We'll talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about that. And so what about yourself? Do you have like a small network or community of people or friends that you know, that you're in constant communication and you talk to about this type of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Because social media is very unique, especially talking about money. My boyfriend does similar stuff to me, but he has a whole different experience to me. So I definitely prefer talking to people who are a bit more similar to me. But yeah, I've got a few friends that I text like every day about it and we'll kind of screenshot comments and be like, oh, another person again. But no, they've been awesome and very helpful.
And so your partner, your boyfriend, he's into the same he's got the same similar goals in life as you?
Yeah, so he's focused more on his business, I guess. So he has a YouTube channel, which he's growing, which is very exciting. But yeah, he talks about investing as well. But yeah, similar.
But do you find that like helps being a young person, having a partner that is very open to talking about like
definitely. Yeah.
'Cause imagine if he was opposite and he felt like, why are you working? Like, get a job.
Yeah, well, I had that in the past with people where I had more money than them or I was more financially successful than them, and that created a few issues, I guess. But I was like, I want to do this. You can't afford it. I'm just going to go anyway, because that was my mentality back then. So having someone who's more equal financially is good. That created a lot of problems.
I bet. But money's a taboo topic.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think there's a place sometimes it's best not to talk about it. And often, to be honest, in public places, like it's a scare, like circling back to where we started, I guess, it can be a bit it can be challenging to talk about it. And a lot of times I would argue it's probably best not to, unless the reason you're doing it is to help other people
Yeah,
basically.
and you can start small. Like, you don't have to be like, I've got this amount of money in my bank account, because that's a bit scary. But if you want to start like talking to your friends about it, you can just start being like, what are your goals for the next year? Like, what are your financial goals? And just start from there. Or start by even sharing your goals by being like, oh, I'm planning on going on a holiday in 6 months, so I'm not going to go to brunch today. Do you guys want to come to my house instead? And I think if you start saying those things, more people will start opening up for sure. But you don't have to be like, this is my net worth, 'cause that's a bit much.
No, I don't think you should ever do that unless it is what you were doing and it was like a interesting way to generate a lot of attention and to grow a channel that is then going to help more people, which essentially that's how to summarize what you did. Yeah, but you should never you should be going to your friends and be like, I have this much in my bank account.
Yeah, unless it's like you've started that with your friends anyway, and that's the exciting thing to do. Like, I've got friends who message me and be like, oh my God, this is my super balance now. I'm so proud I finally hit this milestone, which is amazing to see. But it's good that I've become that safe place for those conversations. But some people aren't ready for it, and that's fine. Like, I've got friends still who won't talk to me about money, and that's completely fine.
Or even you made a competition, like, guys, let's see who can save $10,000 the fastest.
Yeah. Well, let's see like who can create like the cheapest friend hangouts or whatever. Like, we rotate around and we all take it in turns to do something at home or go for a walk or like have a picnic or something like that. So I find it hard if you feel like you're missing out and no one else is saying anything when everyone's going for brunch and you're like, oh, not again. And like, your friends are probably thinking that too, but no one's actually saying it.
And brunch is expensive these days too.
Oh, it's very expensive. I don't like breakfast food that much, so it's not for me, but dinner's still good.
Yeah. No, you like me. Dinner's my favorite too.
Yeah, I just like, I can make bacon at home fine. So
Laura's twirling her fingers at us, so we do have to wrap up. But I just want to say, you're awesome.
Thank you.
You really are. I think what you're doing, sometimes there needs to be one person that has the courage to make a lot of noise and to highlight an issue that is happening, that is affecting a lot of other people. And that person, unfortunately, is going to take some of the brunt of that, because I think every up has an equal down, every down has an equal up. So, it's always going to be there. And I think you're that person, and what you're doing is going to help so many people. And we should totally do that community. I'd love to. We can get all the speakers. Like, we've got everybody. We can bring in some amazing people, whether it be business or investing or like even people from big funds coming. Like, we can do all sorts of cool stuff. And more importantly, you like young people in your community that follow you, they actually just make friends with other people who want to do the same thing. I think we could have a tremendous impact.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be fun. Lots of people will be very excited because I get asked for events all the time, but I don't have the time to do them myself all the time.
I'm
so
excited.
Amazing.
Yeah, done. Okay,
Perfect.
We're doing it. Thank you so much, Tash. You're awesome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hope you enjoyed the show.